going on, everyone? With the release of Solo, a Star Wars story last weekend, I will once again be ranking all of the Star Wars movies. This will be the second time I have ranked the Star Wars movies, but keep in mind, my opinion changes all the time with these films. Last time I did this video was back in April 2017, and I'll let you guys know already, my rankings are different than they were a year and a month ago. That's just how they are. Who knows, maybe my favorite Star Wars movie in 10 years will be The Phantom Menace. That's not gonna happen, very unlikely, but anything is possible. With Solo in the Star Wars universe now, there are officially 10 Star Wars movies instead of just 8, like in my last rankings video. So without further ado, let's get started with number 10. Beginning this list is the elephant in the room. Nothing has changed here. Still, my least favorite Star Wars movie is Star Wars The Phantom Menace. Surprise, surprise. Why is this movie my least favorite Star Wars film? Well, it's by far the most boring Star Wars movie. In fact, I can only watch about 30 minutes of the 2 hours plus that this film provides for the audience, and that says a lot because there is barely anything that is entertaining with The Phantom Menace. The only two things I enjoy with this film happen to be the pod race and the last 20 minutes or so with Darth Maul. Those two moments are really cool. But when we are on Tatooine for 20 minutes before the pod race, and when we then go to Coruscant for 20 plus more minutes, I am completely bored and dead inside of my head. There were a lot of things George Lucas did wrong with Star Wars The Phantom Menace. So many that I don't even feel like talking about all of them. The usual thing I say about this movie is that it is plain old boring, and that is why it is the lowest on my list for the Star Wars rankings. Number 9. This one is at least more entertaining, and I can watch the whole thing through. Number 9 is Star Wars Attack of the Clones, the second episode in the episodic series. This is another film that does have its boring moments, including the Padme Anakin scenes where they are getting away on all these vacations. He's apparently protecting Padme from those who are trying to assassinate them. Guys like Jango Fett. But these scenes are pretty hard to watch because of their terrible chemistry. Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman, they have no chemistry whatsoever in this movie as a couple, but George Lucas decided to force it down our throats. What else is a surprise with that? It's George Lucas after all. The things that do make this movie better, though, than the first one, in my opinion, happen to be a few really fun action scenes, such as the chase on Coruscant, the Jango Fett / Obi-Wan scene. That was a lot of fun, as well as the whole Coliseum scene that closed out this movie. I enjoy all of those moments in this Star Wars movie. That's what keeps me going back to this one and having at least a little bit of fun. But this movie does something worse than that of The Phantom Menace, and that happens to be the acting, the writing, the script in general. Everything having to do with that was pretty much atrocious. Not to mention the CGI looks terrible in many scenes throughout this movie. George Lucas relied a lot on CGI. I think a lot of people would agree with me. The first two Star Wars prequel movies are their least favorite in the entire universe, and the same goes for myself. Number 8. A film that many people love. Critics enjoyed it. A lot of audiences enjoyed it. I know a lot of my friends love this film, but it's also a movie that disappointed others, including myself. I feel like this movie could have been better, and since I reviewed it, my opinion has changed quite a bit, and this movie is not nearly as good as it was the first time I saw it. And that is Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. The thing is, I enjoy this movie too. There is not a Star Wars movie besides The Phantom Menace that I cannot watch all the way through. This is a fun movie from start to finish. There is nothing wrong with that. However, the characters aren't really there. And if you think about it, this movie is basically compiled of 4 scenes. we have the opening, where they're going through all these different planets and you're seeing the characters being introduced. And then we have the Forrest Whitaker scene, and then we have the Mads Mikkelsen rainy sniper scene, and then we have the finale, right on Scarif. That's pretty much what Rogue One is. There is not too much to take away from this film that's great. A lot of it is pretty much just popcorn stuff. I don't think the performances are all that great. This is just a straightforward Star Wars movie that tried to do more than it should have. And there was a lot they could have done better. At least Ben Mendelsohn, though, played a great role here as Krennic. He was really fun in the film, and I did enjoy a few other characters, like Donnie Yen's character. But this movie is kind of forgettable, and I don't really enjoy it too much when I watch it. The ending could have been a little bit better. It's fun, but nothing too special. I think Rogue One was kind of a miss. Just could have been a better movie. Number 7. The newest Star Wars movie is up next, Solo, A Star Wars Story. This is another film that is very divisive among audiences. I feel like actually more people dislike this movie than like it. And here's the things I enjoyed with Solo, A Star Wars Story. Both Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo and Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian were really good in the movie. Both felt like those characters from the original trilogy, and both did a great job in portraying those characters. I know some would disagree, but in my opinion, I think they did a fine job. I would like to see more of them in the future. This film captured the adventure feeling that was missing in films like Rogue One. There was more of that adventure, a lot of fun action scenes in the movie splattered throughout. I also really love the origin story stuff with this film for Han Solo. The movie does tend to overstay its welcome with a few scenes, though. They could have chopped down a little bit on some scenes where I started getting bored in the middle. The cinematography was a bit too dark, and some of the bigger characters in this film, or so I thought, were underutilized. They could have done so much more with certain characters, but chose not to. At the end of the day, I did enjoy this movie. I know not all people did. Many would say this is a fairly average film, but from my point of view, I do think this is a better movie than the first 3 on my list. Number 6. At number 6, it is the first film that kickstarted a new era for Star Wars, and that is Star Wars The Force Awakens from 2015. This film happened to do a lot of things better than that of the prequel movies, the first 2 at least, and those happened to be the characters. I enjoyed many of the characters that were new in this film, especially ones like Kylo Ren. He is awesome still to this day, and it was also great that they brought back the original trilogy characters like Han Solo, Princess Leia, and Chewbacca. That was awesome to see. So having a new cast with the old cast was a great idea and got both newer Star Wars fans and older Star Wars fans to come together and enjoy one movie as a whole. Even fans of the prequels like myself enjoyed this movie. The action is great, the acting is much better, there are plenty of scenes that get you invested automatically in this film from the start, though this movie could have done a few things better, such as not pretty much copy off of Episode 4, A New Hope. If they did not do that, this movie, in my opinion, could have been close to perfect, but nope, they decided to basically just take the script from Episode 4 and almost make a new movie with a lot of things from that film. So I have no idea why, to this day, J.J. Abrams still did that. They could have done something completely new, and I would have been so much happier. Number 5. The sequel to The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, is here at number 5 on my rankings list. I really enjoy The Last Jedi. Rian Johnson decided to take risks with this film, which was pleasantly a job well done. Some of these chances that he took happened to work really well for me. The character arcs brought to life in this film for characters like Kylo Ren, Luke, Rey, Princess Leia, Poe Dameron, even General Hux kind of had a character arc. I enjoyed what they did with every character in this movie, except for maybe 1 or 2. One of those happens to be Finn and Rose, who decided to go on an adventure in this movie, which was fun, but also a bit cringeworthy, and at the end of the movie, they did some really stupid things with their characters. I'm not going to get into it because there's no spoilers in this video. That happened to be one of my biggest flaws with The Last Jedi, but this movie does a lot of awesome things, such as some great action sequences, Kylo Ren and Rey, and what we have going on with them in this movie. There's a lot of secrets. Yes, this movie probably should have answered more questions, but thankfully we at least got some, which The Force Awakens also did not do, unfortunately. The Last Jedi, I think, improved upon The Force Awakens, which was great, and I cannot wait for Episode 9 after watching The Last Jedi. Number 4. Nothing changes here. Number 4 is Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. This just so happens to be my least favorite out of the original trilogy, still to this day. And that's because the middle of this film drags a bit. The Ewoks and Princess Leia, Han Solo, and the whole gang get caught up with them. It's just so unnecessary and boring. I don't know why they decided to put that in there, but they did, and there's no way of fixing it now. You need that to be in there in order to have the plot make more sense. But I do love the Jabba the Hutt scene that takes place in the first 30 minutes of this movie. A lot of great things they did with that. And how can you not love the ending of Return of the Jedi with the Battle of Endor and Darth Vader versus Luke for the final time, with Darth Sidious standing right there in between them, turning them against each other. That was all great stuff. A lot of memorable moments came out of Return of the Jedi, and the conclusion is truly phenomenal. One of the greatest conclusions to any trilogy in the history of cinema. A job well done with this film. Plus, Lando Calrissian is also in this movie, and he has a great sequence with the Death Star and Chewbacca at the end of this movie. So a lot of fun to come out of this film. It's just everything done with the Ewoks on Endor was so unnecessary. It was forced. It did not need to be in there. Number 3. Now here's where my rankings do truly change. And this happens all the time, but for this video, this is what I am feeling currently at the moment. Number 3 is Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, or just Star Wars from 1977. And the reason why it fell from 1 to 3 over the last year is because I don't think it's the most perfect, flawless movie in the world. Yes, I would probably give it a 100%, but there are a few things that I don't like about this movie as much as I do about the two in front of it, at least right now. And yes, this movie was groundbreaking when it came out, but when I still watch this movie to this day, I still have a little bit of trouble watching the final battle over the Death Star where Luke blows it up. I'm just not the biggest fan of that scene, and I've realized that after watching this movie a couple of times over the last year. It just is a scene I have a bit of trouble getting through, and I think it's just because of me not being a big fan of spaceships blowing up things. I'd rather there be action on the ground between characters. That's so much more meaningful to me, but they still do some pretty cool things with that final scene, including Darth Vader and Luke and Obi-Wan talking to Luke. There are definitely great moments splattered in that scene in particular, but it's just not my favorite scene in all of Star Wars, which is why this did fall. Plus, I feel like the beginning takes a little bit to get through. It's really still a lot of fun, though. I love this movie so much. It is a pure classic. Like I said, I would probably give this movie a 100% if I were to review it. It is that close to perfect. I think this movie did something so great, and that's kickstart a whole new era of movies. This is the film that influenced so much in this world today, and that automatically gives this movie so many props for myself. I love the first ever Star Wars movie. No hate against it, but as of right now, I just like 2 movies over it. Number 2! Love it or hate it, I still think this movie is so entertaining. Number 2 is Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. My God, the action in this movie is superb. The best action in any Star Wars movie to date. It is that good, that entertaining, that well done. The choreography for the lightsaber battles is top notch. On point. I know some people don't prefer the lightsaber scenes in this movie because they feel like dancing and super choreographed, but I like them. I don't really care. I think they're entertaining as heck, and the Obi-Wan Anakin fight at the end is still my favorite lightsaber fight of all time. I think this movie has a great story too, with Anakin Skywalker turning to the dark side is one of the greatest stories ever told, in my opinion, in the history of movies. Hayden Christensen improved so much between Attack of the Clones and this film. He was close to tremendous, in my opinion, except for a few scenes where the dialogue is not too great, and I blame that on George Lucas. Nonetheless, this is a very fun, entertaining movie. How can you not love Revenge of the Sith? I get it, the CGI and some of the dialogue is not great, but had they fine-tuned that stuff, imagine what some people would be saying about this movie now. I think a lot would say maybe this is their favorite Star Wars movie of all time. Number 1! Finally, at number 1, this is the new number 1 over that of A New Hope from my last rankings video, and that is Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. The Empire Strikes Back is one of the most perfect movies ever made, and after I watched it again since last year, I still stand by that, and this is why it's number 1 over that of both Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. It's because what is wrong with this movie? There is no slow moments. The acting is all on point. It's extremely entertaining. The story is great. It's different than every other Star Wars movie. I know some people don't really like the whole Yoda sequence, but I still enjoy the heck out of it. I think it's charming. I don't care what people say. The execution of the Yoda-Luke scenes were excellent. Also, Han Solo is back once again with Chewbacca. I love it how we had Luke separated from the group, where those guys are all being chased by the Empire. That's some great stuff. The beginning of this movie, taking place on Hoth, is also awesome. I love that scene. And the ending of this movie is so surprising to many in the audience. Their mouths dropped when we find out that Darth Vader is Luke after having an amazing lightsaber battle between the two. So props to everyone involved with the making of The Empire Strikes Back in 1980. They did a fantastic job. And there you have it. Those are my rankings for the second time of the Star Wars movies. If you guys have your own rankings, be sure to let me know down below in the comments. Man, it just stinks that we're not going to get another Star Wars movie for a year and a half. At the same time, it is a good thing because we don't want too much Star Wars. When we get too much, the quality starts going down, so I think it's fine that we'll at least have a year and a half break until the next movie. There are 3 films coming out this weekend. Those are Adrift, Upgrade, and Action Point. I will most likely be seeing Adrift this weekend and reviewing that. Maybe I'll have time to see the other ones, but I'm not sure yet. If you're new to my channel, click that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.